Howdy folks, and welcome back to Plague Inc. from Endemic Creations. Now, your initial reaction on seeing the title of this video may be bloody hell, Jingles. Given what's going on in the world at the moment, don't you think this is a little bit close to the knuckle? But this isn't what you think it is. Most people who've heard of Plague Inc. know that it's a game where you control some type of pathogen, whether that be a bacteria, a virus, a prion, a fungus, bioweapon, whatever, basically the pathogen of your choice, in an effort to infect and ultimately kill off the entire human population of the world before a cure can be developed. But then there are the exotic diseases, and I use the word disease in the broadest possible sense of the word. One of them is a vampire plague. There's also an extremely popular zombie plague, where you not only control the spread of the disease that's turning people into slavering zombies, but you also control the zombie hordes themselves, and even if the disease itself is cured, you've still got a couple of 100 million zombies running around that can be used to eradicate all of the survivors. But it's been a long time since I played Plague Inc. However, recently I was watching a video on YouTube where a microbiologist and epidemiologist were playing the game and commenting on how accurate the scenarios were. The Cliff Notes version is actually pretty accurate. And I thought I'd give the game another go, and that's when I realised that several other new scenarios and diseases have been added. One of them, I suspect, after a certain presidential election in the USA. It's the fake news scenario. From wild conspiracy theories to election campaign mudslinging, we now live in a post-fact world where falsehoods and misinformation can spread just like a disease. In this radically different scenario, you'll create your very own fake news story and shape it using all the modern tools and psychological tricks at your disposal. Can you deceive the world? This scenario was actually created with the help of professional fact-checking organisations. And we're going to be playing it on the brutal difficulty setting. Fake news, misinformation, falsehoods, call it whatever you want, we're going to deceive the whole world and make them believe it anyway. So the first thing we have to do is decide where our fake news story is going to start. And, well, China seems to be a popular choice lately, so we're going to start there. Before we can get started, we have to actually decide what our fake news story is going to be. This is completing our manifesto. Oh, actually, we'll just go back and pop that infection bubble. We're going to need that point in a moment. So, back to our manifesto. What exactly is our fake news story? Well, there are any number of different fake news stories that it can be. It can be scientific fake news, climate fake news, technology, financial, medical, legal, corporate fake news, celebrity fake news, political, immigration, history. Each of these stories is going to be directed against and hurt a certain type of thing. For example, immigration fake news. It's going to harm the targeted societies and economies of the countries affected. We're going to go for cultural fake news. This tends to harm the cultures targeted and divide the communities. What kind of cultural fake news? Well, that's a very good question. The next thing that we have to do is determine who exactly is responsible for spreading this bullshit around. Our cultural fake news. And there are any number of different groups. The elite, blue-collar workers, students, the elderly, any number of different social groups responsible for spreading our own particular brand of bullshit. And I've decided that the boomers are going to be responsible. It's going to be the old people, sick and tired of being the butt of all of those millennial jokes. So now that we've decided who's going to be responsible for our particular cultural bullshit story, we have to decide what the boomers' motivation is. And again, there are a number of different options. Perhaps they're doing it for political gain, for revenge, for money, for fame. Perhaps the boomers are out to undermine democracy. Maybe they're just doing it to watch the world burn, or because they're bored. Nah, the boomers are trolling. They're doing it for the lols. Well, it seems like as good a reason as any. And we're not quite done, because we have to decide who the target group of our cultural bullshit story is going to be. And since the protagonists are the boomers, well, if the boomers are the protagonists, there's only really one logical choice of victim, isn't there? The natural enemy of the boomer. We're going after the millennials. Yeah. So we're blaming the students. Right, so that's the manifesto set up. The one thing that we need to do now is actually get this story of ours out there. It has to spread. So we're going to go to the growth menu, and we only have 1 point available. So at the moment, our particular bullshit story is spreading by word of mouth. So right now, our fake news story is nothing more sinister than one crazy old Chinese boomer complaining to anybody who'll listen that it's all the fault of those damn millennial kids. Right now, the world is divided into 3 categories. The overwhelming majority, who have never heard my story because it's just me ranting from my Beijing balcony. The people who have fallen for the story, which is just me ranting from my Beijing balcony. And the informed, people who have heard me ranting and don't believe a word I'm saying. Although I am starting to convert a couple of believers, but only 3 people so far, so we need to help this idea spread. And the simplest and most effective way of doing that is to stick it on the internet. Now this is going to give me a significant boost to the virality of my idea because it's easy to spread a message online, but it's going to reduce the plausibility because not everybody believes everything that they hear on the internet, or at least they shouldn't. Now the internet is definitely helping me get the story out there, but the problem that I'm running to at the moment is it's a question of quantity over quality. Yes, more and more people are hearing the story, but the story is batshit crazy, so the overwhelming majority of people who are seeing this story on the internet just don't believe it because it is, well, quite frankly, bullshit. And they can see it's bullshit because I'm just one cranky old Chinese guy ranting on the internet. So I need to do something about my plausibility, and what better way than to buy somebody else's plausibility. We're going to get some influencers on board. Somebody get me the number of Logan Paul's agent. I've heard he'll say anything for the right amount of money. Now this isn't actually spreading the word any faster, but it is reducing the number of people who hear the story and say, nah, that's bullshit, mate. Because they saw Logan Paul tweeting about it, and well, Logan Paul can't possibly be wrong. So that covers all the stupid people, but in order to try to con some of the slightly more educated people, we're going to go out and hire some fake experts as well. Right now there are nearly 500,000 people who've heard my theory, but less than 100 who actually believe it, so we still need to boost our plausibility, and we're going to start hiring research teams to find quotations from influential individuals so we can quote them out of context to make it look like they're actually supporting my theories. And we should start to see that the number of informed people is going up but slowing down because more people who hear the story are becoming deceived because of the various different steps that we've taken to improve the plausibility of my crackpot theory. Overall, my credibility is still kind of low. So we're going to prop that up further by just, well, plain making shit up. Or fabricating data. After all, as everybody knows, 83% of everything that you see on the internet was made up on the spot, including that statistic. So the numbers are still pathetic, but they're getting better. The number of people who are falling for my cock and bull story is going up at a faster rate than the number of people who are hearing it and just don't believe it. The number of informed people who have heard it and don't believe it are going to be a bit of a problem though, because the story is starting to gain traction, even if most people don't believe it for a second. We really don't want to come to the attention of government fact-checking agencies, or if we do, we want to be ready. So, here's the adaptability tab. We can tweet mean things about the fact-checkers, and that will slow down their rate of fact-checking. We can't really afford an awful lot else, but there are all kinds of other ways that we can really stick it to the people who are trying to ensure that the truth is what gets broadcast. Hundreds have now been deceived by Fakegate. We're starting to approach the threshold where people are going to start wanting to get on top of this fake story of ours. And at the moment I don't have a lot of points available because we're not really spreading very well, so tempting though it is to start putting points into growth to increase the virality of my message, I need to be ready for the fact checkers. You really need to do as much as you can early on to slow down the progress of the fact checking. So we're going to hit them with some accusations of bias, because that always works. You see, the thing is, unlike most of the other pathogens in Plague Inc., Your disease still has a fighting chance right up until the cure reaches 100% and starts getting shipped out to all of the infected nations, but it doesn't work like that with the fake news theory. If that cure progress bar in the bottom right corner of the screen goes above 50%, you're probably going to lose, because you win this scenario by being the first to convert more than half of the world's population to your way of thinking, whether that be the fact checkers or me, the crazy old Chinese boomer ranting from his balcony in Beijing. Now I only have 7 funds available. Social media presence. Fund teams to target users of social media with data-driven ads, target those vulnerable to misinformation and most likely to spread it further. So in other words, your mum. Oh, and that's had an immediate effect. Excellent. So that's increased the virality of the message, and it's starting to spread around. Thousands have now been deceived by Fakegate. And the number of people who are now falling for the story is increasing at a much faster rate than the number of people who are hearing it and just not believing it. Because we've got a fairly healthy chunk of plausibility there now, thanks to Logan Paul and all of the fake experts that I hired. And to spread the story a little further, we're going to set up a bot network that's going to create all kinds of fake follow accounts for the social media accounts of anybody who's spreading my own particular brand of bullshit. And yep, that's had an immediate effect. Just going to pause the game to make sure I pop all of those bubbles. I'm going to need all the funds I can get. And nope, nothing new. Right. So at the moment we've got 21,000, nearly 22,000 people who've fallen for my bullshit. It's time to start building them into a community. Because there's nothing that gives people who believe in wild conspiracy theories a warm fuzzy feeling in their stomach more than the idea that they belong to a group of people who all believe the same bullshit. Then they can all turn to each other for reassurance when those pesky fact checkers start trying to disprove my theories. And while we're here, I'm going to further boost my credibility by the tried and trusted method of buying myself a politician. So 20,000 people have fallen for the story, and more than 3 million people have heard it and have not fallen for it. Now, obviously that's not good for us, but it's not good for us in a number of ways. Here it is. Concern over cultural fake news. Fact-checking agencies in China are starting to pay attention, because right now 10 million people have heard the story, and that's enough. We've now crossed the threshold where government agencies in China are now actually investigating and fact-checking the truth of my story. And we can't have that, can we, boys and girls? Luckily, I've already prepared some of the groundwork. The fact-checking agencies are already running into some resistance, but there's more that we can do. I only have 15 points, so how can we slow them down? What's going to give me the most bang for my buck? I've got a number of options available. I can co-opt the term fake news, keep repeating it so often that it becomes meaningless. I can claim that I'm being the victim of a witch hunt. I can impersonate the fact checkers. I can focus on irrelevant details to slow down their progress. Harassing critics is very effective, but it's going to cost 12 of my available 15 funds. Yeah, we're going to go for it. What the hell? It's the most effective use of the funds that we have available. So, at the moment the fact-checking progress is still at 0%. Thanks to the preemptive steps that I took, drastically slowed down their progress. The good news is that I now have well over 250,000 people, and we're approaching 500,000 people who believe my cock and bull story. Unfortunately, there are something in the region of 30 million people who've heard it and don't believe it. So if I want to convince everyone that the millennials are responsible for all of the evil in the world, I'm going to have to work a little bit harder to get the message out there, and that means buying ourselves some TV spots. In fact, I have the funds for it, so we're going to go one step further and we're going to buy ourselves a TV talk show. Now, it can be dangerous to spread the word quickly, and we are spreading the word pretty quickly now that we have a talk show on our side, but when your plausibility isn't really that high, you're still creating more informed people, 77, 82 million at the moment, And you don't want that number to reach half the world's population, because then you're pretty much doomed. The vast majority of the world still haven't heard the story, but the number of believers are growing way faster than the number of unbelievers, so I think we need to support them slightly more directly by fundraising for the community of stupid people who believe my bullshit. Now, once we pop back to the main world screen, 6 million people have fallen for my story, and it's now more popular than UFO abduction claims. At its peak, it was suggested that 4 million Americans had been abducted by aliens, but since mobile phones came along, reports of abductions have plummeted. Funny that. The number of people deceived are really starting to catch up with the number of people who were informed, although we're still heavily outnumbered, but the gap is definitely closing. So what we're going to do now is reward those members of the deceived community by sponsoring community travel so that they can travel to countries that have not yet been deceived and spread some of that good old misinformation. And we're now more popular than flat earth claims. Recent surveys suggest that 2% of Americans believe that the world is flat. If millions of people in the most technologically advanced country in the world believe that the earth is a flat disk being carried through space on the back of a giant turtle, then I should be able to convince the entire world that the millennials are to blame for everything easily. Ooh, the manifesto for Fakegate is really resonating with some sections of society. Community increases. Hooray for all those Florida retirement homes. Boomers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your dentures. And I've got a shit ton of points available now, so I'm going to spend some of them in buying an entire political party. Politicians are cheap. And I still have 45 points left. Now, I could concentrate on growth and credibility, but when I was last on the world screen, the fact-checking had actually started. Thanks to all of the preemptive steps that I took, it took a long time for it to actually get started, but it has actually started going. So luckily, some of these options are actually pretty cheap. I'm going to co-opt the term fake news, just keep repeating it over and over until it loses all meaning. What? Hey, it's a proven tactic. Just ask Donald Trump. Anyway, 36 points. Community merchandising? Or community amplification? We're going to encourage deceived communities to amplify specific misinformation stories to the rest of the world. And this is really good because it increases everything: virality, community, and plausibility. And since I'm also a completely unapologetic scumbag, I'm going to incite people to harass those who've heard the story and don't believe it, so that they are less inclined to publicly disagree with the narrative. Don't worry, it's just a game. That's not something that actually happens in real life, is it? And for the first time in this game, the number of stupids who actually believe my bullshit outnumbers those who've heard the story and quite rightfully don't believe it. Governments worldwide are now concerned over Fakegate. Right, they're really going to start stepping up the fact-checking now. Although it's not fair to call everybody stupid because they believe my story, given the steps that I've taken to ensure that people are only hearing the story from what they trust as credible sources, and the steps that I've taken to discredit and harass anybody who dares to try to set the matter straight. But the fact-checkers are really starting to step into high gear now, so we're going to hire people to discredit the experts and fact-checkers by digging up dirt on them and making them sound unreliable. We're going to pay for our own fake fact-checkers to deliberately contradict the real ones. And then we're going to hire somebody really unpopular, so Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, to come out publicly against us. And if that doesn't fuck up the forces of truth and justice, then I don't know what will. The numbers are looking really good. I almost have 1 billion people on my side, although not many Russians or Americans. That's kind of disturbing, actually. Why is that? Because, I mean, these are two media-savvy countries. You'd think that they would be the most exposed countries, or amongst the most exposed countries to the idea, that now has 1.5 billion supporters. Oh, here we go. Fakegate is now bigger than Russian booze stories. Russia is often depicted as the highest alcohol drinking nation in the world when they actually only rank 7th. Very few correctly pick out Belgium as the booziest nation, so there you go. The Russians aren't falling for it because they're all stone cold sober. Well, we're going to have to fix that. 60 points. We're going to buy ourselves a TV network. 19 points only, cheap at half the price. Let's see what effect that's had. Still got 47 points to spare. There are only 3 countries in the world, the Caribbean, Greenland and Angola, that have not yet heard the story. That's not the ones that don't believe the story, they haven't even heard the story yet. So we clearly need to invest in more growth. Let's get a second bot network going. It's only 2 points. Why the hell not? Although it is going to decrease the plausibility a little bit, but it's going to give us a big old boost to the virality of the message. Still got 47 points. Media hit piece. We can hack the experts. It's 21 funds though. Discredit information sources. Yeah, that's pretty cheap. We'll go ahead and do that. Defamation lawsuits. Oh yeah, definitely. Fact-checking agencies claiming that I'm lying. That's defamation, that is. I'll see you in court. Oh, and Angola, Greenland, and the Caribbean just fell. The entire world has now heard my story. We are now more popular than anti-vaccination claims. Fake news can cost lives. The World Health Organization has named vaccine hesitancy as one of the top 10 threats to global health in 2019, and vaccine misinformation could reverse decades of progress made in tackling preventable diseases. And the numbers are looking pretty good. So far, 63% of the world's population haven't even heard the story and don't know what the fuss is about. But of the remainder, 29%, nearly a third of the world's population, are on my side, and only 8% heard the story and no longer believe it. Ooh. Fact-checking just reached 25%. I'm going to have to do something about that. So I don't have that many options left. Let's see, I can claim that I'm the victim of a witch hunt. It's only 5 points, we'll go ahead and do that. We can focus on irrelevant details to mire the fact-checkers down in useless trivia. I could always hack the experts and set their research back. I've done defamation lawsuits. I can organise a boycott, but, well, when does that ever work? What the hell? It's only 12 points. Why not? 21 points, I've got 29 left. A media hit piece? Hack experts. Screw it. Hack experts is more effective. And that's, well, it dropped it back down to 20%, but it jumped back up to 21 and 22% pretty quickly. Almost half of the world is now deceived. And that's the tipping point. Because once you have the majority on your side, the minority often just give up and stop arguing. And if the narrative is all coming from your side, what the opposition thinks is irrelevant. Oh, hang on a second. New options are now available in the adaptability tab. Well, it's about damn time. What do we have? Trigger moral panic. That's going to seriously slow down the fact checkers. And it's only 4 points. What's next? Provoke authorities. Only 5 funds. Incite hatred on both sides of the debate to put pressure on governments to take strong action. Oh, yes, because governments always have to be seen to be taking strong action, don't they? Well, 5 points well spent. Destabilise governments. It's only 6 points. Trigger extreme overreactions from governments and civil society. I don't know if we're quite prepared to go that far. Let's have a quick look. Fact-checking's at 28%. 29%. It's still climbing a little quickly. And we still haven't really made much impact in Russia, although we're starting to gain a bit of a foothold in the USA. So what can we do here? Expand the victim list. Oh, shift the narrative to fresh victims, not just the millennials. Well, okay. I'm going to instigate some viral chat messages, just to try to get the message out a little bit more effectively in Russia and America. It's pretty cheap. And we're gonna drop the bomb and destabilise governments. And that will really screw up the fact checking. And just to back up the viral chat messages, we're going to give ourselves a significant buff to our plausibility by exploiting trusted institutions to publicly come out in support of our message. And we'll buy a newspaper while we're here as well, because we've got the points. And it's not that expensive. So come on, Russia. Yeah, the number of people falling for the story in Russia is going up quite nicely. I seem to have 24 points. What's this? Fakegate bigger than teenage pregnancy reports. Teenage pregnancy rates are often overestimated across the world. Overall, the average guess is that 20% of teenage girls give birth each year, when the reality is 2%. That I did not know. Oh, majority of the world is deceived. That's the tipping point. Once you've got half of the world's population on your side, the fact checkers are fighting an uphill battle. I don't actually need to spend any further points now, but I'm going to do it because, well, I just like fucking with the fact checkers. So we're going to expand the victim list. Now this can be a very, very useful tactic if you're behind on the numbers, if there are more people who are informed of the truth than who believe your lies, because expanding the blame list converts informed people into unaware people so that they can be freshly exposed to your ideas and have a chance of becoming believers. Right now, nobody knows who's to blame. Hang on, we thought it was the students. It's the foreigners now. What the hell? Fakegate has damaged public trust so badly that people retreat into isolated communities of like-minded individuals. The ability to even consider opposing viewpoints has been lost. So basically what I've managed to do here in this game is turn the entire population of the world into Reddit. And the last person in Iran who believed the truth has decided that it's just not worth fighting it anymore, and has agreed that Fakegate must be true. At least in public. But that's all that matters. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, every person in the world is convinced that the millennials, or possibly those foreigners, are responsible for everything that's wrong. I have created a truly post-fact world where Fakegate holds sway over billions, and the truth has become completely and utterly meaningless. Next, here's Bob with the weather. That's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you next time.